Nicholas LaValle, Town of Merrimack's Media Services Coordinator. Great to be here yet again. I just wanted to I wanted to thank Mr. Noah Mendel for stopping by during public comment. Much of what he said was very true, and his enthusiasm is very much appreciated. So what we're talking about is our cable TV franchise renewal, and I would like to stress that this entire presentation is relative to traditional cable television, not internet services, and also a look towards the future of traditional cable television. So what is our cable television franchise agreement? Well, it's an agreement that is non-exclusive. This document authorizes and permits the franchisee, Comcast, to construct, upgrade, install, operate, and maintain a cable television system within the town of Merrimack. This is a 10-year agreement that was made in January 2009, and the end of the term is 2019. I just want to stress again that this has to do with traditional cable television, and Comcast owns all of the cable television infrastructure here in Merrimack. A question that came up during our discussion last month was how our cable television rates determined. Just want to make mention that the franchisee, which is Comcast, has control over the amount to bill per the Cable Act of 1984. Last time that we had this cable TV franchise renewal was back in 2008. And since then, consumers now have more options relative to how they view programming. 10 years ago, to watch your favorite shows, you'd rely on traditional cable television services. And now viewers have the option to view shows in a number of different ways through an internet connection. And this industry has drastically changed because of consumer trends and our viewing habits. Direct quote from a Forbes article published in 2018 was that streaming platforms such as Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube are growing rapidly at the expense of pay TV's losses. Looking at current highlights of our franchise agreement, traditional cable television services are available to all residents within the town of Merrimack. Any Merrimack resident may request to have traditional cable television services brought to their home. Free basic traditional cable television services are available for municipal buildings, including police, fire, and schools. In our current franchise agreement, again, a customer service center is made available in a neighboring community. And then also there's a section relative to complaints resolution procedures. Comcast receives a service request within 24 hours. It's expected there will be a response time, and where possible, a resolution shall occur within 48 hours. If the franchising authority, which is the town council, determines it to be in the public interest, they may investigate multiple complaints. If there's a pattern of multiple unresolved complaints, the franchising authority, this town council, and the franchisee, Comcast, may discuss appropriate amendments to the franchise agreement. And again, this is relative to the cable television portion of any subscriber's bill. Additionally, the franchising authority may hold a performance evaluation hearing once during each year of the renewal franchise. The franchisee should be provided at least 30 days notice of such hearing. These are highlights in the current franchise agreement, and I would recommend that these highlights be retained in a renewal. Additional items to consider in the renewal franchise: service availability. This was something that we talked about last month as well. Service availability meaning if a subscriber is without service and they would like to request service, in this current franchise agreement, the distance between the pole and the potential subscriber's home would have to be, the maximum would be up to 150 feet before there's a cost to that potential subscriber. We could negotiate an increase such as 250 feet. I would also suggest we include language to provide service to not only the current municipal and school buildings, police buildings, fire buildings, but also future municipal and school buildings. I also.
I don't want to interrupt you.
Sure.
It's okay for this specific.
Sure.
Are all of our municipal buildings covered, the dump and so on, or do they have anything down there?
I think they all have basic service right now. I know that in the past there had been some issues, and also if there were to be new construction, there's nothing stated in there for new construction.
Okay.
And that's why I had suggested that we should negotiate that to be in place.
I agree. Thank you.
I'd also want to make the recommendation for a fourth public education and government channel so that at least one of our channels or content could be included on Comcast high definition tier. Eileen's got her hand up.
Oh, Eileen, I'm sorry. Jump right in. I apologize.
Can we get the HD TV with Vaseline lens? You don't get that.
Yeah, it's not going to be the government
Yeah.
channel.
Oh, we
It's
don't,
HD.
okay, we don't want that. Yeah, we don't, we
Makes us
definitely,
look better, is that what it is?
yeah.
course.
It makes you look so much worse.
look
It gives
you
me
good.
like,
They
you-
do.
yeah, exactly.
Takes the glare off, is that what it is?
No, it shows your
It
pores
shows
and everything
every
else.
single crease.
Oh.
Yeah, so,
I could also volunteer Chris Perez, our part-time media technician, to do your makeup. if
do your
so
makeup.
wish.
Excellent. Hey, Chris, excellent.
back there?
He just went like
Yeah, he
this.
just,
Awesome.
Uh, Also, I don't,
Closed by.
also I would suggest potentially, or asking for a potential senior citizens discount. And an example, Bedford recently went through this franchise renewal, and not in the franchise agreement itself, but there's two side letters that the town of Bedford received, which is a promise to the town that they'd have a $2 off a digital starter package. So it's something for senior citizens. And they also, just to backtrack a little bit, they also received a side letter. They'll be the first public access channel in the state to actually have a channel on the high definition tier. It's expected that Manchester will follow. And I actually have copies of the two side letters available if you guys would like copies of that.
It's okay. Thank you, though, for copying them.
Sure. And then in addition to that,
Yeah, right.
items to consider in the renewal franchise fees. Now, what are franchise fees? Franchise fees, currently the town receives 3.75% from gross annual revenues from traditional cable television subscribers. The town council has typically used these funds to cover the media division, our public education and government television channels, and our staff. This is per the Cable Act of 1984, up to 5% can be requested. We could potentially expect a loss in revenue from franchise fees. As I mentioned in a few slides earlier, as more households are cutting their traditional cable television services and relying on streaming content through the internet, the town does not receive revenue from internet services. Another question asked in our last discussion was, can the franchise agreement be less than 10 years? And the question is, the answer is it doesn't have to be 10 years. However, my recommendation would be to have a 10-year agreement. And the reason being is I feel that it would protect the consumer, specifically our viewers, in this changed industry. I think an agreement today protects the consumers for tomorrow that expects to see our channels, our content streaming on our Merrimack TV website and YouTube channels. And I think it has more of a guarantee to be made available over the course of the next decade. Suggested timeline, we held a discussion in August at a town council meeting. There's this presentation here tonight. I would suggest that we post an open opportunity beginning September 14th through October 10th for residents to submit questions, concerns, and suggestions to the town council. We can put that on our website tomorrow to send those comments to Merrimack TV at merrimacknh.gov. I would suggest we schedule a public hearing for the next town council meeting in the town council to finalize franchise agreement suggestions in October. Have legal counsel review those suggestions of yours during November, and for Comcast, present Comcast with the finalized franchise agreement from this town council in December for an agreement to be made in January. Our next step, just as I mentioned, to open up a comment period online, schedule a public hearing, and allow residents to provide input regarding the new renewal franchise agreement, and invite Brian Christensen, who is the Comcast Senior Manager of Government and Regulatory Affairs, and other representatives from the cable company should also be invited to attend as well. I want to stress that public input, like Mr. Mendel's, is important, it's welcomed, and it's encouraged. This presentation could serve as a guide as to what we can and can't have negotiated in our franchise agreement. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Nick. Robert?
Can we have the lights back on so I can see my notes?
Sure.
Thank you. There were a couple of other items when I did the comparison between what is the proposed contract for Merrimack as compared to against the Bedford. So there are a couple of places where it varies. Like in our contract, it talks about having 30 dwelling units in order for them to actually bring a line in and establish cable service there. Bedford is doing 20. So that's maybe something we want to consider, since there's a lot of building going on over the next year, adding new house units or apartment units. So we want to make sure that the contract allows for them to get cable service if in fact it's under the 30 units. So I would propose going to 20. Also for where there is underground, I'm sorry?
That would be included underneath the serviceability part of the contract.
Yeah, it falls under section 5.
Yeah, serviceability.
Yeah. And also they talk about the underground cable units. Again, there was a difference there. And I propose that we go to 25 versus the 30 again there. On the next page, and still in that same section, there's some work that needs to be done as far as completing the formula for the cable plant. Again, it talks about having 30 dwelling units per aerial or underground mile of aerial plant, and again, that's the 20. So just that whole section needs to be switched over on the mileage. Also, they have something there regarding the time frame, and that would be down in section 5.5 as far as how they restore. And Bedford quotes RSA 236.9. I can write these all out for you too, Paul, if you're the one who's in charge of this. So I think we need to have some similar wording referencing that particular legislation. On Article 8, where we talked about the franchise fees, that was kind of interesting because, again, as you state, we have 3.75%. Bedford is running at the maximum of 5%. Now, the franchise fees, if you've been paying attention to your Comcast bill, that does not come out of the pocket of Comcast. That gets charged, yeah, to us, and the citizens
Used
pay
to be
it.
higher, we lowered it.
It was 5%.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I don't know how much of the income is related to that and how much we need that income, but that's always something that we can lower, maybe even more, and give some relief. But like I said, Bedford is doing 5%. The interesting part I found was that, and I'm sure you saw it as well, the $250,000 that Comcast gives the town of Bedford for their equipment maintenance as well, and we don't have anything in that section. We don't have anything comparable. We're not getting any money from Comcast for that.
We could negotiate for capital funds, and what Bedford uses those capital funds for is the build-out of their community TV studio, as we have one here. We do have a reserve fund, and Bedford does not. So that's
Okay.
the difference there. We've been frugal when it comes to budgeting for this department, very frugal over these past 10 years. For a while, we were sort of saving that money in the event that maybe we did have to build a building. We used cable franchise fees to renovate this building that we're in, to renovate this meeting room, our studios, and our offices as well, so that we actually, we spent some of that money, but we've saved quite a bit of money, whereas Bedford has spent theirs each year.
Yeah.
Is that-
So-
I mean, that just seems kind of odd, that because of the way we do our budgeting and business, and they choose to do it differently, they're getting rewarded for that by
Right.
$250,000.
And we're not.
I'm sure that money gets passed on to their ratepayers. They're not giving that money out of their goodness of their heart.
Okay, all right, I misunderstood that.
I'm guessing,
We don't know that, I think is.
but I'll bet.
Who knows anybody in Bedford?
Um,
Okay, so, also,
I just
oh,
want-
I'm
just
sorry.
if she
Can I
could
just make
touch
one? So, what I wanted to say is that they're also getting 5%. So they're getting 5%, which means they're getting much bigger chunk of money, and then they're getting another $250,000, and it'd be interesting to know what they're spending it
I'd like
on.
to know where it came from. And not to
Okay.
interrupt you, but when it comes to the franchise fee, for me, if we are starting to run short, not able to run our operations, then I would be interested in raising it. But for me right now, I mean, unless I misunderstand, I'd rather not. I'm
I agree.
inclined to leave
I
it where it
agree.
is. So, yeah, because I didn't think we were even close. I thought,
Yeah,
but
I
I know, I
agree.
understand, as you suggested earlier and before, that it's going to thin out as time goes on because of people's habits and where they're going for their television and so on.
Right. Yeah, that 25,000 is coming under the section of PEG access equipment, that's 7.4, for capital funding. So, yeah, they're getting a little bit in there of change there for their capital outlays.
Correct.
And then the only other thing I noticed is that for the page that we just talked about, regarding where and what buildings should have cable access, we probably want to put a list there. We didn't have anything on the other one, so. I'm done, thanks.
Peter?
Actually, I'll pass. Barbara covered some things.
Very good. Bill?
On page 22, Nick, on page 22, do we still have a TV studio at the high school?
We do not.
So that should be taken out of the agreement, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. The other question, going back to page 24,
Bill, just
And
to follow
I
up.
should mention, not only should the TV studio be relocated here to Town Hall, that should be mentioned, but also our head end. I think that's almost more significant, is that our channel originates from
Right.
this building.
so I apologize, Councilor Albert. So really, the origination points really need to be written to better reflect, which I'm presuming is Town Hall and the public library,
Town Hall,
just Town Hall.
yeah.
Okay,
Origination points for our 3 PEG channels.
okay.
And to touch upon that, Bill, about the studio at the high school, and I don't know if I want to eliminate that, only because moving forward, and we have a meeting next week with the school board, maybe we get their input on what they see is, moving forward in the future. Do we leave that language in there at some point? I don't know, but, and kind of get their input. I'd like to hear their input on, what, do they see further cable services needed too?
Well, that's the advantage of having the future in there.
Huh?
That's the advantage of Nick's suggestion about having, and future
And
municipal.
future municipal,
That would cover that, which is,
Yeah, okay, but I'm just saying, maybe we,
no, but I think your point is well taken.
okay, thanks.
on page, this is just more curiosity, on page 15, section 4.3, What is Capitown? Parental control Capitown?
I'm pretty sure that that would have to do with cable boxes themselves. There's a lot of, are you talking about the
Well,
French?
it's titled Parental Control Capitown. I've never heard Kappa, C-A-P-A, Town, T-O-W-N-E.
Page 15.
Page
the
15.
recommended Franchise agreement.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just curious. Correct.
Yes,
Yeah. Doesn't recognize it.
Told you.
it's a made-up word.
Must be false.
This is 410.
It's section 4.3 on page 15.
I'm gonna assume that that's parental control capability.
Okay.
That that's a typo, because it says subscribers with the capability to control the reception of any channels being received on their
Okay.
television sets.
Mhm.
So that's a typo.
On the current one, it's capacity.
On page 16, Nick,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
is 15 days generally standard for service availability?
Service availability.
It says the
yep.
franchisee shall make its cable system service available to all residents within 15 days of a request therefore.
They got rid of Capitown.
It's the same in the Bedford.
Was it the same in Bedford? Okay.
That's what I was just trying to pull up. Thanks, Barbara.
Yeah, no, I try to compare all the timelines and money.
No, good.
I mean, 2 weeks just seems, I mean, I understand scheduling and the whole, I mean, on Comcast part, scheduling the whole, just 2 weeks seems like a long time.
Cable.
That's why, cable withdrawal, good point.
Is
And
there
then really, the thing that kind of hit me hard like a 2x4 across the side of the head, on page 24, under section C, excuse me, section B, said franchise fee payments shall be made to the access provider on a quarterly basis. Why are we allowing Comcast to collect interest on a franchise fee that we're collecting before we get our fees? Why are we allowing them to collect interest on that? Why are we not getting these payments on a monthly basis? I mean,
It's a great
we're putting money in Comcast's pocket. We shouldn't be doing that.
I agree, so.
I would want monthly, and I would want monthly written there, and everywhere else where it says quarterly, it's monthly. If I've said my piece.
Peter?
Section
I
D,
guess the-
go ahead.
Just to touch on that, Bill. Paul, does it make more sense quarterly or monthly? Is it more of a burden to do it monthly, or?
No, because we get the payments usually about 100 days. So the quarter ends and we get them 15 days after the quarter. So we're talking roughly $90,000, so about $30,000 a month is what the payment would be versus the 90 to 92,000 that we get.
So there's no, I guess, a hardship? Is it
No,
easier for
we
the
can,
finance
no,
department?
it's just a check,
Okay.
that's all it is, it's just a check that we cash. So it's not a hardship.
Thanks.
And then section D, Nick, same page,
Mhm.
and I didn't understand this, and if anybody can educate me, I'd appreciate it. It says the franchisee shall not be liable for a total financial commitment pursuant to this renewal franchise in excess of 5% of its gross annual revenues, provided, however, that said 5% shall include any other fees or payments. What are they saying? I mean, I understand it's legal and it's there for a purpose, but in layman's terms, what exactly are they saying? I mean, does it go back to
Would you
your,
repeat that again, please?
Sure, it's on page 24, it's the entire section D. Does this go back to your presentation, Nick? Where you talk about where we can't charge more than 5%? Because it reads, the franchisee shall not be liable, shall not be liable for a total financial commitment pursuant to this renewal franchise in excess of 5% of its gross annual revenues, provided, however, that said 5% shall include any other fees or payments required by applicable law. I don't understand what,
Is it meaning that their investment in the community, of their expansion or any of that?
I think what it's saying is
No.
it's going to provide 5% of their gross annual revenues, and that's the cap. That's how I read it, is that that's the cap unless there's some other law that requires them to pay more. Maybe that's relative to them promising capital funds. But to me, I read that as 5% is the cap, and they shall not be expected to pay any more than that.
Just out of curiosity, it's interesting that Bedford says the cap is 5% and shall in no case include the PEG access equipment required from section 7.4 or any other fees or payments required by applicable law. So 5% plus.
Well, absolutely. I mean, whatever the best is, that's what we should at least be shooting for.
So they're doing the 5% plus.
Yeah. And ours says 5% and no more.
Yeah. Well, I think as we go through these hearings that you've recommended and so on, and I think that was all a good idea, I would be interested, you had said Mr. Mandel's ideas were worthy. I'd be interested in how that plays in, if it is of any benefit to the town and so on. He was pretty adamant about it, and so, I'd be interested in hearing what those things were and so on there.
Absolutely, and I think public, as I said during the presentation, public comment is encouraged. It is welcome. And Mr. Mendel, I had spoken with him in the past, and he's obviously very passionate and enthusiastic about what the potential with this renewal is. But some of the other points that he made when he was speaking was that he pointed out there's really only so much that we can do,
Right.
and that's not to discourage us from getting the things that we want. There are things that we know we want. We would love to have a senior citizens discount. We'd love to see our channels in HD, and we want to continue providing these public education and government resources to the community. And obviously the service availability, we want to make sure that if people are building a new home, that they are going to be able to have cable run to their house, and it's not going to cost them any more than it would be if someone had been here for the past 10 or 15 years. So, just hearing some of his thoughts tonight was great, and I hope that the public sees this presentation. I hope they're made aware of this, but I do need to stress, and we stress this throughout the entire presentation, this is only relative to traditional cable television services here in Merrimack. And I know it gets confusing because we also rely on Comcast for internet service. This is not relative to the services they provide relative to the internet. Now, the good news of that is that there is competition now to view content. There is competition to view television programs, and that's through a wireless connection from your cell phone provider. Comcast knows this. They see the competition, and they've changed the way that they bill their cable TV. They changed the way they offer their services. There is more competition now. So those are just things to be mindful of when the public does recognize that we are renewing a cable television franchise.
Real quickly, that you brought that up is where I would like to go, if not tonight, at another meeting sooner than later, is that conversation was about the town setting up I don't know if it was broadband or whatever, internet access to the community. And what I'm hoping that the council will agree to do is have a group put together, have 5 people, whatever, to do all that research, to dig into the communities who have already done that, find out how they finance the whole thing. Because I believe that if we had that opportunity for our community, that would change Comcast tune a little bit. because I do feel trapped by them. I recognize it's not a monopoly, but it really is. And so so if we can do that, then I think they'd be stepping to the plate a little bit more in a stronger fashion to deal with their pricing and everything else about it. But, go ahead, Tom.
No, just my 2 cents on the franchise fee. I mean, I'd actually want to see that a little lower, to be honest with you, because it's just, even go down like a 2% franchise fee, because then that's less the taxpayers have to pay. And I get it, we offset it sometimes towards the taxes at the end of the year, but that's only our portion of the taxes. You still have the school portion of the taxes. So I would like to see that too. I'd like to see it to go down even 2% instead of from 3.75.
I just want to point out that if you were to reduce the cable franchise fee, if you were to reduce the amount of money that Merrimack receives from cable subscribers, there could potentially come a day when the services that we provide here with cable television will impact property taxes, and it will be significantly greater than the impact of your cable bill now.
Right.
I just want to follow up on him, if you don't mind. I'll do an analysis for you.
Thank you, that would be good.
Okay, so I'll bring that to you.
Yeah, to know what the impact would be.
Yeah, thanks, Eileen. Was it Bill?
That's what I was going to say. Can you do an analysis, 3%, 2%, so that we can see what the numbers are? Thank you.
All right.
I was just going to make a comment that the gentleman seemed to imply that we didn't allow other people in this competition against Comcast. And we just want to, is that the implication anybody else got from him? So that has to be corrected again, that
Right.
even though essentially is a monopoly, it's not a sole proprietorship. We can have other cables or other franchises come in. It's just that we can't get someone in, and they own the wires, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's the
Exact
bottom line.
point.
They'd have
And,
to.
and Mr. Mendel brought that up, that if he had $100 million, then he would start his own cable company.
Right.
And, I don't know what it would cost to start a cable company, but it would be expensive because you would have to run those cables and provide that infrastructure.
Right.
Or rent them, or at least.
Just to follow up on, we're going to have the public submit comments or questions or whatever. Is there a process for intake on those and tabulation of those?
Well, if we have them submitted via email to Merrimack TV at merrimacknh.gov, those emails, would be available under
Yep.
the right to know law.
That's what I was getting at, is
Sure.
they need to know where to send them. And also, the contract allows us to have, to at least have some kind of remediation if we're getting complaints by that. I get a sense that we've never set up a process or told the public that they have the right to, come to us to be able to try to resolve issues for them with Comcast. So I think we need to set up a process for that, as well as advertise that that process is available.
Well,
I think also we'll be taking the suggestions, comments, they can mail them into, to the town manager's office, because not everybody likes to write everything down in email. Some people like to write it out in a letter. So if they want to, we'll put it up on the website that they can also send it to the town manager's office via snail mail.
Yep.
On that.
I think if everybody's in agreement with Nick's suggestions as far as our next steps, if you will, as he noted, then we should do that and have timeframes for those meetings or the, public input, periods or whatever. So we can have that. But did anybody have anything further in that? Tom?
You're looking for a motion to affirm the timeline that Nick is promoting,
That would be good.
with the addition of having them under bullet number 3. Feel free to mail their suggestions into the town manager's office at 6 Babusick Lake Road. And that can be posted on the website as well. Posted on TV, whatever, however you are planning to post this. Make sure that they can email it or they can send it in to the town manager's
Sure.
office.
Town website, physical mailing address, and
Right.
And
email
also
address.
cable.
And also, they could call in, I guess, and leave a comment with town manager's office. And that, so in moving that timeline, we would affirm the public hearing for the September 27th meeting. and inviting, as you said on the second page, inviting Comcast to attend as well.
Sure.
That's the
Yes.
motion.
Just one comment, just actually, Nick, this presentation here, can we get it on the town website? Can you also put it on the cable channel?
Absolutely.
I think that that's important for people to
Sure.
see.
What I could do is I could actually take the presentation separately and play that on the channel.
Yeah, that'd be, I think
Yeah.
that'd be informative for the folks.
No, I agree.
And even on the website, a document for them. to
I'll
look
be
at.
happy to make a televised version of it, for sure. Voice over.
And then maybe even add a line in here that says that Comcast is, not the only one allowed in town. You know what I'm saying? That the reason we have Comcast is that they're just a sole, requesting franchise.
Absolutely.
They own all the infrastructure, so anybody else comes in town, they're gonna have to lease it from them or rewire it.
Right, but I still would like to have an RFP go out.
You want an RFP to go out?
I think so. And if nobody responds, then nobody responds, but at least I know that and am able to tell people that.
Okay, so, in terms of timing, your time frame, how does that all change everything?
Well, it shouldn't change anything at all, because the franchise agreement will be what they're working toward, I suppose. So maybe that should go out after we've come up with what we want for a franchise agreement, but otherwise, they would have to follow the same, I'm saying this without absolutely knowing. I suspect they have to follow the same franchise agreement if somebody else were to come into town. I don't think they're gonna have a separate franchise agreement, will they? No. So once that's put together, then we can ask people to come in and do it. So maybe it is better to wait till we have something solid.
Yes, Nicholas? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you just make a motion to go out to bid?
Oh, we have
There's already a motion on the floor.
Yes, we have to do Tom's, sorry about that. You pulled me right in. I was ready to do it. So the motion was made by Tom,
I
Peters,
second.
Tom
Peters.
Fulton seconded it. All right, is there any further discussion on that? No, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 700.
Now do you?
Do you want me to make the motion? If
No.
no,
For it.
No. I move that we request town manager to go out to bid for any potential other future cable TV franchisees via a RFP, request for proposal.
Seconded.
in qualifications you suggest?
Yeah. Proposal and qualifications.
Request for qualification?
For proposal.
It would have to be for qualifications, because if somebody is, they can give us whatever price they want, but if they don't have the qualifications, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So qualifications.
So, okay,
For proposal.
RFQ.
Right.
How about that?
and P, anyway, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Second?
Motion by Tom Koenig, seconded by Nancy. I'll speak to Tom's motion. I don't know that we'll get anything back. We have tried this once before, but it was years ago. And so I just like the proposal go forward, so I know that I've asked the question, or we've asked the question. So I appreciate your support of Tom's motion.
Me too.
Is there any further discussion on it? I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 700. Thank you, I appreciate that. Then my last thing, oh, go ahead.
That will happen after legal counsel review of the franchise agreement, when everything's said and
Yeah.
done. So it's going to happen in the December timeframe.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Should I set up a separate agenda item for my request to have a committee assigned? Then I will do that for the next meeting, if there's room.
I'm sure we'll be able to make one.
All righty. Does anybody have anything further for Nicholas?
Was there a
So-
vote for a public hearing on the 27th?
Yes.
Is that right?
Part of the
Okay.
timeline affirmation.
Okay.
Yep. So your suggestions have been
Okay, great.
agreed to.
And to invite Comcast.
Sure,
You're going to handle that for us, please?
sure,
Thank you.
Excellent.
absolutely.
All right, Nick.
In conjunction with
Thanks a lot,
town
guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Or your proxy, yeah. there you go.
All right, committee, we'll move on to item number 1 under new business.